Hi, doctors. Welcome you to the another series of Menopause by Dr. Payal Bhagava. She's completed her postgraduate diploma in ART and reproductive medicine from Kale, Germany, and fellowship in infertility from IMA Hyderabad. And she's a life member of IMA Menopause Society India and PCOS Society India. She's a member of managing committee of PCOS Society India, and she's a co-founder and director on board for XPS Analytics Private Limited. And she's also a consultant at Sri Krishna Diagnostic Center, and she's a consultant at Pranada Hospital, Hyderabad, and she's a co-founder for Divine Magic Foundation, a public health and awareness initiative working at grassroots level and digitally through its YouTube channel. So now let me welcome Dr. Payal Bhagava Madam to take further this educational initiative. Yeah, thank you.
Thyroid disorder is the most common endocrine disorder in women of all age groups, and the incidence is rising day by day. Divine Magic Foundation is coming up with a series of thyroid disorders in women of all age groups, from birth to menopause. So, our first in the series is congenital hypothyroidism. The contents of my presentation are etiology of congenital hypothyroidism, clinical features, postnatal changes in thyroid hormone levels, screening approaches for congenital hypothyroidism, approach to a newborn with positive screening test, antenatal diagnosis, treatment and monitoring of congenital hypothyroidism, and prognosis of the patients. Let me first describe why congenital hypothyroidism is a topic we need to discuss today. Congenital hypothyroidism is an important preventable cause of mental retardation. Clinical manifestations of congenital hypothyroidism are absent at birth. It impacts brain development, myelination, and neuronal connections. Many newborns remain undiagnosed and may later suffer from mental retardation. It is amenable for detection only by screening, and early treatment leads to excellent outcomes. Now, before going into the depth of congenital hypothyroidism, let's first discuss about fetal physiology. Thyroglobulin is secreted by fetus at 4 to 6 weeks, TRH at 6 to 8 weeks. Iodide trapping occurs at 8 to 12 weeks. Fetal T4, T3, TSH secretion starts after 12 weeks of gestation. First 12 weeks, the fetus is dependent on maternal T4. Fetal HPT axis develops late. The negative feedback mechanism of the HPT axis starts to mature by 26 weeks of gestation, and it is fully functional at 1 to 2 months after birth. So at this point of time, the fetus needs help from the mother. Placenta allows iodine, TRH, T4 placental enzyme types 3-deiodinase, antithyroid drugs like methimazole, and antithyroid antibodies like TSH to cross and reach the baby. So a little bit about neonatal physiology. 30 minutes after delivery, an abrupt 3 to 6-fold increase in circulating T3 and T4 level occurs, coincident with increase of serum TSH concentration. Then TSH surge, stimulation of the neonatal thyroid gland, hence increases circulating level of thyroid hormone. However, the TSH surge is short-lived and TSH hormone will decline after 72 to 96 hours of life due to feedback inhibition of T4, either the hypothalamic or the pituitary level or both. In a preterm infant, TSH surge is less marked and the T4 and T3 responses are blunted. In less than 31 weeks of gestation, no surge is seen and instead T4 levels falls for 7 to 10 days. What happens in a premature baby? In a premature infant, there is loss of maternal and placenta supplied hormones. Hypothalamic pituitary immaturity is there. There's limited thyroid gland reserve due to small thyroid gland. There's persistent fetal thyroid hormone metabolism. Iodine imbalance is there. Predisposition to non-thyroidal illness, medications, and adverse perinatal events. Escape from Wolff-Chaikoff effect does not happen till 36 to 40 weeks. Thus, infants younger are susceptible to inhibitory effects of iodine. Now coming to our topic of congenital hypothyroidism, it is inadequate thyroid hormone production in a newborn infant. Initially, it was termed cretinism. It is associated with either the congenital absence of a thyroid gland or the inability of the thyroid gland to secrete thyroid hormone. It can occur because of an anatomic defect in the gland or an inborn error of thyroid metabolism or iodine deficiency. As stated earlier, it is the most common preventable cause of mental retardation. The overall incidence of congenital hypothyroidism ranges from 1:3,000 to 1:4,000 globally. In our country, ICMR data between 2007 and 2012 in Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Hyderabad, and Kolkata reported the overall incidence of congenital hypothyroidism to be 1 in 1130 newborns. Let's see a few terminologies commonly used in congenital hypothyroidism. Primary hypothyroidism is deficient production of thyroid hormones, either due to structural, that is dysgenesis of the thyroid hormone, thyroid gland, or functional dysharmogenesis. Secondary or central hypothyroidism is deficiency of thyroid stimulating hormone. Peripheral hypothyroidism results from defects of thyroid hormone transport metabolism or action at the target site. Permanent congenital hypothyroidism refers to a persistent deficiency of thyroid hormone that requires lifelong treatment. Transient congenital hypothyroidism refers to a temporary deficiency of thyroid hormone discovered at birth, but then recovering to normal thyroid hormone production. So these patients need thyroid hormone replacement for a very short time, and then it can be discontinued. In syndromic hypothyroidism, some forms of congenital hypothyroidism are associated with defects in other organ systems like heart. So why does congenital hypothyroidism occurs? Common form of thyroid dysgenesis, that is aplasia, hypoplasia, or ectopic gland in 66% of patients. Cause of thyroid dysgenesis is unknown. It can be due to mutations or inborn errors of T4 synthesis, secretion, or utilization. Transient hypothyroidism occurs due to maternal anti-immune thyroiditis, maternal medication for Graves' disease. Endemic cretinism from iodine deficiency. So we have here two scenarios of congenital hypothyroidism. In the first one, the mother is normothyroid and the fetus is hypothyroid. Whereas in the second scenario, we have a hypothyroid mother as well as a hypothyroid fetus. So in a normothyroid mother and a hypothyroid fetus, there is usually thyroid dysgenesis, transplacental passage of hormones, and increased type 2 deiodinase activity in fetal brain, conferring neuroprotection. Near normal cognitive outcome is possible if postnatal therapy is initiated early in these babies. Whereas in hypothyroid mother and hypothyroid fetus, there is iodine deficiency. There's significant neurointellectual impairment that occurs in the babies. How does a congenital hypothyroidism baby presents to us? The symptoms are usually decreased activity. There's poor feeding in the baby, weight gain, hoarse cry, poor growth, constipation, and these babies are usually referred as good babies because they cry less and sleep excessively. There is usually family history of infants with similar affliction, unexplained mental retardation, and prenatal birth. Maternal history of thyroid disorder is usually present. So let's see detail of clinical features in a congenital hypothyroid baby. Most infants with congenital hypothyroidism are asymptomatic at birth due to the transplacental passage of maternal T4. Post-maturity, in 20%, gestation extends beyond 42 weeks. Birth weight and length of the baby are normal. Head size may be slightly increased because of myxedema of the brain, large anterior fontanelle, and delayed closure of fontanelle. Prolongation of physiologic jaundice due to immaturity of hepatic glucuronil transferase. The babies are sluggish, cry little. They are often referred as good babies because they rarely cry and sleep most of the time. They have poor appetite and feeding difficulties, protuberant abdomen, umbilical hernia, macroglossia, and cold or mottled skin and hypotonia. As the baby grows and reaches the age of 3 to 6 months, the clinical picture is fully developed if they are not diagnosed and treated early. The child's growth will be stunted, the extremities are short, and the head size is normal or even increased. Coarse facial features are present, the eyes appear far apart, and the bridge of the broad nose is depressed. The palpable fissures are narrow and the eyelids are swollen. The mouth is kept open and the thick, broad tongue protrudes. Dentition will be delayed in these babies. The neck is short and thick, and there may be deposit of fat above the clavicles and between the neck and shoulders. The hands are broad and the fingers are short. The skin is dry and scaly, and there's little perspiration. So as the baby grows further, there's myxedema is manifested, particularly in the skin of the eyelids, the back of the hands, and the external genitals. Carotenemia can cause a yellow discoloration of the skin, but the sclera remains white. The scalp is thickened and the hair is coarse, brittle, and scanty. The hairline reaches far down on the forehead. Development is delayed. Voice of the baby is hoarse. Sexual maturation may be delayed. So this is how a congenital hypothyroid baby looks. Now, 3 to 7% of infants with congenital hypothyroidism have other birth defects, mainly ASD and VSD. Infants with obvious findings of hypothyroidism, example macroglossia that can be seen in the picture, enlarged fontanelle, hypotonia at the time of diagnosis, have intelligence quotient of 10 to 20 points lower than infants without such findings. Anemia may occur due to decreased oxygen carrying requirement. So for diagnosing, we have cubic clinical scoring for congenital hypothyroidism. The score is 1 for feeding problems, constipation, lethargy, hypotonia, macroglossia, mottling of skin, and umbilical hernia, whereas it is 3 for coarse facies. Open posterior fontanelle, dry skin are scored 1.5 each. So if the score is more than 4 by 13, hypothyroidism is suspected and the child is investigated accordingly. So we have a study here showing influence of timing and dose of thyroid hormone replacement on development in infants with congenital hypothyroidism. In this study, 27 severe congenital hypothyroid babies and 34 mild congenital hypothyroidism babies were studied, where patients with CH can achieve normal psychomotor development at 10 to 30 months, irrespective of the severity of the disease, was the conclusion. So IQ of congenital hypothyroidism patient is normal if treatment is started early and adequately in these babies. How do we screen for congenital hypothyroidism? And why do we need to screen for congenital hypothyroidism at the first place? Given the large number of births in India per year and the cost involved, if only one disorder is to be screened, it should be congenital hypothyroidism, as stated by Dr. Bradford. It is well understood, it is very easy to detect, it is inexpensive to treat, and the return on its investment is very, very high. It is our prime responsibility to give our patients a happy, healthy, and a mentally stable baby. Now, the patients of congenital hypothyroidism are asymptomatic. Window to initiate treatment is very small. If we start within 2 weeks, then we can prevent mental disorder in the baby. So how do we screen these babies? So we screen these baby 48 to 72 hours post-birth. If sick neonates and preterm, it should be done by 7 days. The capillary blood sample are taken from heel prick, specialized filter paper dried at room temperature and sent to the central lab. The TSH stir, as we have seen earlier, starts 30 minutes after birth of the baby. It is most marked for the next 24 hours, but may persist for 48 to 72 hours from the maternal thyroid hormone. Cord blood is largely spared of the neonatal surge. So either cord blood or postnatal day 3 to 5 samples should be used for screening for congenital hypothyroidism. Ideal is universal newborn screening at 3 to 4 days of age should be done. Most cases are sporadic in iodine deficiency, sufficient areas, and intellectual impairment can be prevented if treatment is initiated early. In the absence of universal screening, newborns with following indications must be screened. Having clinical features of congenital hypothyroidism or a family history of thyroid disease or anti-thyroid medication intake in mother, presence of other conditions like Down syndrome, trisomy 18, neural tube defects, congenital heart disease, metabolic disorders, familial autoimmune disorders, and Parry-Robinson syndrome, which are associated with higher prevalence of congenital hypothyroidism. So all these patients need to be screened for congenital hypothyroidism. A newborn screening is done using cord blood or by heel prick sample, as we have discussed, on dried blood spot filter paper at 3 to 4 days of life. 3 approaches are being used for screening. The first one is primary TSH, backup with T4, primary T4 backup with TSH, and concomitant T4 and TSH. So let's see which one is the best for screening these patients. Primary TSH backup with T4. TSH is measured first. T4 is measured only if TSH is more than 20 in these babies. This approach is likely to miss central hypothyroidism, thyroid binding globulin deficiency, and hypothyroxanemia with delayed elevation of TSH. In the second approach, we do primary T4 and back it up with TSH. T4 is checked first. If it is low, that is less than 6.5, then TSH is also checked. Now, in this test, we are likely to miss milder or subclinical cases of congenital hypothyroidism in which T4 is initially normal with elevated TSH levels. The third type is concomitant T4 and TSH. This is the most sensitive approach, but incurs higher cost. Abnormal values on screening should always be confirmed by a venous sample using age-appropriate cutoffs. We have a study here of congenital hypothyroidism screening in term neonates using umbilical cord blood TSH values. Among the 88 patients recalled for repeat sampling, 80 turned up. One neonate finally proved to be hypothyroid on repeat workup. So the conclusion we drew from this study was we can safely use a cutoff of cord blood TSH value of more than 20 milli-international unit per liter for the purpose of screening for congenital hypothyroidism. For logistic angles, a higher cutoff of more than 30 can also be used. So what are the TSH cutoffs for screening? TSH more than 20 is recommended as a cutoff for recall for the postnatal screen samples after 48 hours of age. Screen TSH more than 40 milli-international unit per liter is recommended for defining screen positive cases for immediate recall for venous confirmatory test, whereas those with mildly elevated TSH, that is from 20 to 40, should have a second TSH screen at 7 to 10 days of age. Age-related TSH cutoff of more than 34 is suggested for screen samples taken between 24 to 48 hours of age. So here is a chart showing age-based reference values for thyroid hormones in a premature infant from birth to 4 days and so on and so forth. We have an algorithm for screening and detection of congenital hypothyroidism. In this, the heel prick of cord blood is sent. If the TSH is more than 20, then we do a repeat sample. TSH, if again comes more than 80 and 40, we do confirmatory venous sample for TSH, and if FT4 and T4 after 72 hours of age. If it is also elevated, then we start treatment for the patient. If normal, then the patient can be left alone. So significance of pre-T4 levels. In most situations, total T4 is sufficient for diagnosis and monitoring treatment. But free T4 is a more robust marker as represents the bioavailable fraction of T4. In following situations, it is preferable to use free T4 levels. That is, in a premature or sick newborn, immature liver function, undernutrition and proteinuria, low levels of TBG or abnormal protein binding. Low total T4 and normal TSH. If free T4 is normal, congenital, complete or partial TBG deficiency is to be excluded. If free T4 is low, suspect central hypothyroidism. During post-treatment monitoring, post-treatment measurements should include free T4 and TBG. So in this slide, we come to know where we need to do free T4 levels. Coming to the imaging studies, thyroid scanning, technetium 99M or iodine 123 is useful in defining the cause. It may aid in genetic counseling, aid in distinguishing congenital hypothyroidism from transient hyperthyroidopenia and presence of an ectopic thyroid gland. It is not required to do for all patients to confirm the diagnosis of congenital hypothyroidism, but can provide important information about the etiology, that is what is causing hypothyroidism in the baby. Coming to ultrasound, a lateral radiograph of the knee may be obtained to look for the distal femoral epiphysis. This ossification center appears at about 36 weeks of gestation. Its absence in the term of post-term infant indicates prenatal effects of hypothyroidism. So how do we approach a newborn with positive screening for congenital hypothyroidism? So positive screening test on filter paper. Then we do serum T4 or free T4 or TSH level. If it is abnormal, start treatment. Don't wait for the scan. Later on, when we do thyroid scan, it may be normal, it may have absent uptake, or can show an ectopic thyroid gland. Now, in case of abnormal T4, TSH, and normal thyroid scan, thyroglobulin is done. If it is absent, then TG synthetic defect is there in the baby. If it comes normal and positive, there is transient congenital hypothyroidism. These patients, as suggested earlier, will need treatment for a short while. If it is negative, then thyroid hormone synthetic defect or drug effect is considered. In case of abnormal T4, TSH, and absent uptake on thyroid scan, ultrasound is done. If there's no thyroid tissue, then the patient is of thyroid agenesis. If the ultrasound shows a normal scan, then TBII measurement is done. If it comes positive, it indicates TSH receptor or thyroid hormone biosynthetic defect. If it is negative, then transient congenital hypothyroidism is considered. So is there any way that we can diagnose the patients of congenital hypothyroidism before they are born? That is antenatal diagnosis. So majority of cases of congenital hypothyroidism are sporadic. Women who are at high risk of fetal hypothyroidism are previous infant with congenital hypothyroidism resulting from dysharmogenesis or maternal TRB antibodies. Pregnant women with Graves' disease and treated with antithyroid drugs. Iodine exposure during pregnancy, inadvertent treatment, and radioactive iodine after 8 to 10 weeks of gestation. So hypothyroidism is suspected if there is fetal goiter, increased amniotic fluid, and fetal bradycardia. Measurement of amniotic fluid, TSH, or thyroid hormone levels are not reliable, and fetal umbilical cord blood levels are necessary to diagnose fetal hypothyroidism. However, genetic testing on fetal cells obtained by amniocentesis can confirm the diagnosis. So let's see why it is important to diagnose congenital hypothyroidism antenatally. Now, significant enlargement of the thyroid at birth may lead to respiratory distress and can even cause death. Partial thyroidectomy may be needed in such cases. Hypothyroidism diagnosed antenatally is treated with weekly intraamniotic injections of L-thyroxine. Initial dose is 250 micrograms of L-thyroxine per week, ranges from 250 to 600 micrograms. Subsequent dosing was based on the treatment effect in reducing the size of the fetus and repeat fetal cord blood thyroid test. Main aim of antenatal therapy is to shrink the goiter. Role in long-term neurocognitive outcome is questionable in these babies. What are the treatment goals for these patients? Why do we need to treat them? The immediate goal of treating a congenital hypothyroid baby is to normalize T4 within 2 weeks, normalize TSH within 1 month. The long-term goal is to have a good physical growth and a proper neurodevelopment. Starting thyroid hormone treatment should never be delayed by more than a few days to evaluate cause. Delay in normalizing serum T4 and TSH by more than 2 weeks after starting treatment resulted in a 10-point lower IQ. So what we need to consider in these patients is, as soon as we diagnose congenital hypothyroidism, we should start the treatment irrespective of what the etiology is and what is causing the congenital hypothyroidism. So coming to the treatment of congenital hypothyroidism, T4 should be kept in the upper half of normal range, that is 10 to 16 microgram per deciliter of free T4 in the 1.4 to 3 with the suppressed in normal range. It takes less than a week for T4 to raise and 4 to 5 weeks for TSH to normalize. So monitoring of T4 and TSH should be done according to the following schedule. 0 to 6 months, every 6 weeks, the patient should be monitored. From 6 months to 3 years, every 3 months, and beyond 3 years, again, every 6 months. So 6 to 8 weeks after any dose change, the patient should be monitored. Growth and development of infant should be monitored. We should prevent overtreatment as it may lead to premature fusion of cranial sutures, acceleration of skeletal maturation, problems with temperament and behavior. So infants with low T4 and elevated TSH should be started on L-thyroxine as soon as a diagnosis is made. Initial dose of L-thyroxine is 10 to 15. Infants with severe hypothyroidism should be started with the highest dose of 15 microgram per kg per day. Preferred preparation is sodium levothyroxine. It has uniform potency, reliable absorption, and good bioavailability. Daily dose should be crushed and placed directly on the tongue in the morning. Iron and calcium preparation interfere with its absorption. If a dose is missed, then double dose should be given on the next day to the babies. In case of permanent hypothyroidism, the caregiver should be counseled regarding the nature of the condition, need for long therapy, compliance, and therapeutic monitoring. Transient hypothyroidism, presumed to be due to maternal goitrogenic drugs, needs to be treated if low T4 and high TSH is there. Therapy can be discontinued after 8 to 12 weeks if values return to normal. Intake of antithyroid drugs can be continued by the hyperthyroid mothers during breastfeeding because concentration of these drugs is very low in breast milk. So transient hypothyroidism presumed to be due to maternal autoimmune thyroiditis. If TBI are documented in infant, treatment should be started if T4 is low and continued for 3 to 6 months. If it is not possible to document TBII, continue treatment till the age of 3 years and then give a trial of therapy for 6 weeks, followed by retesting of T4 and TSH to determine the need for continuation of therapy. If they are normal, then monitor TSH annually. The follow-up of these patients are very important, and the recommendations for follow-up are: the initial levothyroxine dose is 10 to 15 in the neonatal period, given as a single dose as a crushed tablet in expressed breast milk. Serum T4 and FT4 is measured at 2 weeks and TSH with T4 and FT4 at 1 month. Then again, we need to do T4 or FT4 and TSH every 2 months till 6 months of age, every 3 months during age 6 months to 3 years, and every 3 to 6 months thereafter till completion of growth and puberty. Babies with the possibility of transient congenital hypothyroidism should be reevaluated at the age of 3 years for permanence of congenital hypothyroidism and the need for lifelong therapy. Hearing tests and clinical evaluation for other congenital malformations like heart are to be performed for all babies with congenital hypothyroidism. So coming to the prognosis, improved prognosis in congenital hypothyroidism treated before the age of 3 months is shown in various studies, that is starting within 2 weeks of birth. So prognosis depends on age of onset of treatment, starting dose of L-thyroxine and severity of hypothyroidism. Now the age of onset of treatment, in infants on whom treatment was started between birth and 3 months of age, the mean IQ was found to be 89. When the treatment was delayed and started between 3 and 6 months of age, the mean IQ was 71, while if treatment was not started at all until the age of 6 months, the mean IQ dropped to 54. So we can see why it is so important for us to start treatment early and as soon as the diagnosis is made. Starting dose of thyroxine, outcome is better in children when the dose is high, that is 10.1 to 15 per day, then low dose of 6 to 8 microgram per kg per day and intermediate dose of 8.1 to 10. Neonates having complete atherosclerosis, very low pre-treatment T4 levels and presenting with epiphyseal dysgenesis had very poor outcome. So let's conclude congenital hypothyroidism. Congenital hypothyroidism is quite common in Indians and is the most common reversible congenital cause of mental retardation. Early identification and intervention is important as thyroid-dependent brain development is complete by 3 years of age. Universal screening is ideal as most cases are sporadic. Positive cases on screening by filter paper test should be confirmed by serum levels estimation. Serum thyroid hormone levels are of primary importance in diagnosing and managing this condition. Other investigations are ancillary. Age-based reference values must be followed in interpreting the results. If the diagnosis is made and treatment started within a few weeks of birth, neurodevelopmental outcome generally is normal. Timely monitoring, serum hormone levels, compliance, growth and development, and adequate counseling of caregivers are key in managing this condition. So the next topic of our series will be thyroid disorders in pregnancy. Thank you so much for your patient hearing. It is our duty to give a healthy, happy babies to our patients. Thank you very much.